Welcome back to the Notebook Check Tech Review channel, where we're taking a look at the Acer Swift 3 launched at IFA 2016. This model is the high-end model, around €1,000 with the Core i7, 8 gigs of RAM and the 512 gig SSD. We scored it 85% in our test, and in this video review I'm going to take you around some of the test results that we got from our lab tests. We'll take a look at the ports, the build quality, and we'll go through some of the benchmark test results for gaming, graphics and CPU. Let's first take a look around the device. Casing actually reminds me of the good old Samsung Ultrabooks from when they launched maybe 5 years ago now, I think it was. And this Acer is coming in at around €1,000 with a lot more specification. I'll start with mentioning the Windows Hello fingerprint reader, which allows you to get into the device very quickly. But let's just take a look at the port selection. Starting from this side, you see full-size USB port. That's a USB 2 port. Audio, input-output port, and a full-size SD card reader. Unfortunately, the speeds on that SD card reader weren't very high at all. 22.7 was the average copy test speed. You'll see a couple more test results in our full review. Flipping it around to the other side, you'll see HDMI output, a USB 3 port, and a USB-C port. That USB-C port with USB 3.1 Gen 1. So not a massive amount of connectivity, but standard ports helps all the same. So this is something really aimed at home office, student and home use. Have a look on the underside. You can actually get that back off. There is soldered RAM inside, so bear in mind that the entry-level version with 4 gigs RAM won't be upgradable, but you can access the SSD inside this. Fit and finish all around the device wasn't bad at all. We've got some metallic feeling plastic here, and everything seems pretty solid. Not too much wobble on the hinge. Weight overall 1.5 kilos. The keyboard pretty good. Nice bit of travel, good bit of click through. Good bit of resistance on the keys as well. It's backlit, and there's a really nice large trackpad here, which works pretty well. Just want to mention the noise as I've been doing this test. There are a couple of fans inside, and I'm hearing those just slightly in the background now. I think for people working in a busier office environment, you won't hear those, but for those of you working in a silent room, and our expectations have gone up in the last 5 years as to how loud a laptop can be, but you will hear those fans in the background, and for some of you working in silent environments, that might be a little bit annoying. Let's talk about that screen. It isn't an IPS screen. There's not a massive amount of viewing angle there, and the brightness tops out at a very poor 215. Color space isn't so high. 55% of sRGB is really not impressive, although what colors are there are fairly accurate, with deltas down around 5 and 4.2 for the grayscales. That's not too bad. It's not up there with the best, which would have a delta of around 3, tending towards 1, and it's not as bad as some of the laptops we've tested, which have had deltas up to and over 10. Classic Ultrabook performance here is a dual-core U-series CPU with a 15-watt TDP. Some of the performance figures we're getting weren't right up there with the best, but then only sort of 5%, plus minus 5%, when compared with other devices with this generation of Core i7 inside. So it's enough for office work, for a little bit of store gaming, not for PC gaming. In this test here for Curse of the Tomb Raider, we're getting 11, 12, 14 frames per second on low settings with a 1366 by 768 screen resolution. So not for PC gaming, maybe some old games, but certainly not new games. SSD on this, 512 gig, and performance wasn't too bad at all. We saw sequential read and write speeds up there at around 400 megabytes per second, and 4K read and writes weren't too bad here, 24 for the read, 65 for the write. In our temperature load tests, we saw temperatures up to around 44 on the front, in the middle here. That's not too high, shouldn't worry anyone really. On the back it's even a little bit cooler, and that is under heavy load characteristics. So under normal use there's really no heat to worry about here, so it's nicely tuned in terms of heat here. It's a 1.5 kilo device. Acer have built in a nearly 50 watt hour battery, which isn't too bad. We're getting 11 hours 47 minutes of idle, but ignore that. Wi-Fi surfing 5 hours 54 minutes. Would have expected a little bit more from this. Maybe there have been some apps running in the background during this test. I did notice that the antivirus was still installed when I took this out of the box for the video, so you might be able to squeeze a bit more out of that. 6 hours in general for Wi-Fi serving, and up to 6 hours. Well, 5 hours 43 in our H.264 1080p video view test. One thing I have to mention is that although this is an AC dual channel equipped Wi-Fi adapter that in fact connects at 867 megabits a second here, the transfer rate in our test was down at 115 megabits per second. There's the result of a Wi-Fi test I've just completed on our local network here, connected over the AC protocol. I'm getting 200 megabits per second read from our NAS server. But bear in mind then there may be an issue with our setup in the test lab that just doesn't work very well with this Atheros Qualcomm Wi-Fi unit. So with that Wi-Fi issue being said, and also noting that the SD performance wasn't very good, there's not a lot of upgrade capability in here, certainly in terms of memory, which is soldered on, and the display is fairly limited in its color range and its brightness. You've got to take those into consideration here. But it's a solid chassis here with good input devices. That keyboard and mouse pad is really nice. There's low temperature and low noise, although bear in mind in a silent environment you might be able to hear those fans which are constantly humming away in the background. You've got a reasonable set of ports, and the Windows Hello fingerprint reader is going to help as well. It's a nicely built device, and for a 512 gig SSD with 8 gigs of RAM and that Core i7, €1,000 isn't a bad price. If you're looking for a home office laptop, home office ultrabook, a hot desking solution, something to use as a student, then this might be an option for you. Keep an eye on prices. I noticed that street prices are about €50 below the retail price for this device already. This is January 2017, so keep an eye on prices. There may be discounts going on the Acer Swift 3. You'll find more performance and review information in the full review at notebookcheck.net. Don't forget to check it out. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more information on upcoming reviews, and don't forget to give the video review on YouTube a thumbs up. Comments below if you have anything to ask. And thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next notebookcheck.net tech review.